US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order giving security guarantees to Qatar, stating that any attack on the country would be considered an attack on the United States. Follows last month's Israeli strike in Doha, targeting a Hamas negotiating team. Here's part of that order signed by Trump. It says it is the policy of the United States to guarantee the security and territorial integrity of the state of Qatar against external attack. The United States shall regard any armed attack on the territory, sovereignty or critical infrastructure of the state of Qatar as a threat to the peace and security of the United States. In the event of such an attack, the United States shall take all lawful and appropriate measures, including diplomatic, economic, and, if necessary, military, to defend the interests of the United States and the state of Qatar to restore peace and stability. Kimberly Halkett joins us now from the White House. So, quite a significant development. What else are US officials saying?
Well, U.S. officials actually have not spoken about this directly, but what we know is that there was lots of talk about this, particularly when the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was here at the White House on Monday. Why? Because that is when the U.S. president, who was furious about the attack that Israel launched earlier this month on Qatar, specifically those Hamas leaders that were meeting in Doha to go over a U.S. proposal to end Israel's war on Gaza, why they were so furious about the attack, but also that is what, during this meeting, prompted an insistence by the U.S. president that the Israeli prime minister apologize in a telephone call to the Qatari prime minister. That is what we understand took place. And this is also part of what has taken place in terms of this executive order you just read out, which ensures that there will be a guarantee of security by the United States for Qatar. Now, the United States really values the relationship that Qatar and the United States hold, because not only is the U.S. president a very fond and good friend of the Emir of Qatar, but also there is the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East located in Qatar, and the Al Udeid Air Base is of strategic importance to the United States. So it is a legitimate concern when there is an attack inside Doha. That is a threat to the United States as well as Qatar, and that is how this executive order says it will be treated in the future. In other words, when there is a strike, and hopefully there won't be, but if there is a strike, whether it is Israel or anyone else, the United States and Qatar will coordinate for a rapid response, whether it be military, diplomatic, or economic, in order to ensure the safety and the interests of both Qatar and the United States.
All right, let's thank Kimberly Halkett for her reporting there. Let's bring it here in the studio in Doha. We have joining us Adnan Hayajneh. He's a professor of international relations at Qatar University, specializing in U.S. foreign policy towards the Middle East and Gulf security, as well as Al Jazeera's Osama bin Javaid, of course. He's covered the aftermath of that Israeli attack here in Doha. Good to have you both with us. So, Osama, how unusual is this for the U.S. to have to make this kind of statement after an ally has been attacked by another ally?
Well, it is quite extraordinary, because this is the first time that you're getting a NATO-like treaty, a deal with an Arab state and the United States of America. You have to see the background to this. It was not just this attack that was carried out by Israel. There was a previous attack because of the U.S. presence. The state of Qatar came under attack because of under Iranian fire. And then this attack happens, which the Qatari defenses were not able to intercept. A lot of questions were asked about how the United States is, as an ally, can justify its presence. And this is why you've got
maybe
all
this
of
is where it's good to bring in Adnan. Is this the US basically trying to shore up its credentials as the number one security partner of this region?
I think so. After the fallout, I think they failed to defend Qatar after the attack from Iran, and They were an attack on September 9th by the Israelis, and the Americans failed to do anything about it. And the Qataris were not happy about the United States. And there were some talks about with the Trump administration to provide some security guarantees. And I think there were a lot of talks after that. And this is coming after the apologies coming from Netanyahu to the Prime Minister of Qatar.
Right.
And this is to show an accurate, really, some things on the ground that we are willing to do some things. And what happened in the past, I think, is in the past. But this is a new
and not
page.
just any things. It's talking, Osama, even about, if necessary, military means, right? And everybody knows the background here, that this is not just hypothetical. This is coming after the most recent attack, is an Israeli attack on Doha.
Absolutely, and especially when Israeli leaders are continuing to issue threats and saying that they will still go after whatever they feel is a legitimate
We'll get
target.
them next time.
Exactly. So
So
on the back and on all of this backdrop, and you have to look at it in the chronology of events, the U.S. president sat down the Israeli prime minister against his will and got him to apologize to the Qatari prime minister. You have to see that there's players in the region who are looking elsewhere. The Saudis have signed a security deal with Pakistan. And the presence that Qatar has given the United States, it's historic. It's rooted from a time where the U.S. troops were not really welcome in that region. And for the U.S. to just stand idly by and let Qatar be attacked, it wasn't going to go down well. So what this means is that the Qataris have brought back their role in mediation with Hamas. They have now presented this plan, and they have told the United States that if you are a real partner, then the proof is in the pudding. You have to stand up, and this is what its executive order says.
And I suppose, Adnan, no one really thinks that the US is going to shoot down Israeli planes. So the underlying message from this is Israel will not be coming back to hit Qatar again.
We have to make sure that this is only an executive order. It is not a treaty. I disagree with that it is the resemblance of the Article 5 of the NATO, because the NATO is a treaty, and it is only just coming from Trump. If Trump goes and some other president will come, so it is not obligatory for the United States to defend Qatar. But I think it's an improvement, and it is a major shift in U.S. foreign policy
As an
towards
executive
Qatar.
order, it doesn't need further ratification, though.
It does
right?
not.
So it's a way of circumventing that.
Because if a treaty has become a law, it has to be passed by the Senate and by the U.S. Congress, and it is obligatory for all the future presidents to follow up with that. It is only just think to make up for what really happened on the cracks between the United States and Qatar after the attack from the Israelis and from Iran, and having two bases and the United States not doing anything. Now I think Trump is delivering something on the ground to say that we will have some support and some protection for the Qataris, and they have to rest assured that there will be no attack from Israel in the future.
Osama, this is a bit of a slap on the Israelis, right? How's this going to go down as well with Netanyahu? He came under criticism domestically from some of his coalition partners on why did you offer that apology? Assumedly, this is going to pour more grievance on that pain, shall we say?
Absolutely, because you see, Netanyahu, essentially what every analyst has said to us is that he overplayed his hand, whether it was at the United Nations, whether it was attacking Qatar, whether it was not taking the US administration on board, although you have to figure out who knew what when this attack actually happened. And the US said that it had informed the Qataris, albeit after 10 minutes of the actual attack. But it does go to show that, yes, Israel enjoys that immunity from the United States, militarily, politically, economically. But the US has to review its strategy towards the entire region, because just because of Netanyahu's policies, it is not going to burn bridges with long-standing allies and also lose its credentials as a security and safety partner, because if it cannot...
That's a really important point. Since you've opened it, Osama, we just got a minute. What does it say about the direction of US policy? A bit haphazard?
Well, I think Israel is an important country to the United States, but Israel cannot serve all the interests of the United States. So the United States have other interests in the region, and they have the other allies. They have to maintain that. And I think what is Qatar
and is it finding it challenging, especially with someone like Netanyahu at the helm?
Of course. Yeah, I think there's so many problems. I think Netanyahu has become a liability for the United States when it deals with the region here.
All right, Adnan Hayajner, from Professor of International Relations and US Foreign Policy at Qatar University, and of course our Osama bin Javaid. Great to have you both in the studio with us.
Don't miss out, get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.